Tomas was not an important man. He didn't wear shiny uniforms or command big starships. He didn't give speeches or stand in front of cameras. He was just a quiet human engineer working on the Virilian Human Unity Station, a peaceful space platform where both races studied each other's technology and culture. Tomas liked simple things: fixing broken machines, drinking warm tea, reading old books, talking to plants in the greenhouse when no one was around. Most people on the station hardly noticed him. That's why the invitation surprised everyone. It came in a soft silver envelope, carried by a tall Virilian with gentle eyes. Virilians were elegant beings, tall, with soft-colored skin that changed slightly with their emotions, and hair that moved like underwater silk. The messenger bowed deeply and handed the letter to Tomas with care. Tomas looked at the envelope. His name was written in both human script and Virilian calligraphy. "You are invited to the royal binding ceremony on Virelia," the message read. "As an honored guest of House Mira." He blinked. "House who?" His friend Lena, a translator, leaned over his shoulder. "House Mira. That's the royal family." Tomas laughed softly. "It must be a mistake. I'm just a station tech. I tighten bolts and clean filters." But the invitation was real. The station's Virilian representative confirmed it. "It is rare," the diplomat said with a small smile, "but not an error. You are expected." Tomas didn't want to cause offense. The Virilians were peaceful, but deeply respectful of tradition. Rejecting an invitation to a royal ceremony could be seen as rude or worse, shameful. So, after some hesitation, Tomas packed a small bag, cleaned his boots, and took the next transport shuttle to Virelia. The Virilian homeworld was beautiful. When the shuttle entered orbit, Tomas stared out the window in quiet wonder. Giant floating gardens drifted above golden lakes. Tall crystal-like towers rose from the ground like giant flower stems. The clouds moved slowly, colored with soft purples and greens. At the spaceport, a guide waited for him, a young Virilian woman in a flowing robe. She introduced herself as Senra and spoke softly. "We are honored you accepted," she said, bowing. "I still think you invited the wrong Tomas." He joked nervously. She smiled kindly. "There's only one Tomas on the guest list." They brought him to the palace, which was more like a living farce than a building. The walls were made of smooth, glowing wood. Flowers bloomed from the ceiling. Soft music filled the air from hidden instruments. It smelled like sweet leaves and fresh rain. Tomas felt out of place. Everyone wore beautiful clothes, robes that shimmered like moonlight, jewelry made of gentle light. He had only packed a clean shirt and his best station boots. Senra offered him a ceremonial robe. "Wearing this will show respect." Tomas changed quickly and followed her into the grand blooming hall. It was unlike anything he had ever seen. Thousands of guests filled the open-air hall. Virilians from different regions wore colorful sashes and floral crowns. A long path made of floating petals stretched from the back to the center, where a small glowing pool waited. He was guided to stand with other guests near the center. A soft voice announced the entrance of Princess Mira. She walked down the petal path with calm grace. Her robe shimmered in silver-blue hues. Her eyes met many faces, but for one strange moment, they met as Tomas looked away, feeling awkward. She was royalty. He was a maintenance worker. Surely, she wasn't looking at him. As the ceremony began, a voice guided the guests. "As part of the unity blessing, honored guests shall join in the ritual of petals," Senra whispered. "Take a handful of petals from the bowl." He did. "Now, speak the phrase, 'May the bond bloom in truth.'" Tomas repeated it, though he didn't really understand. The words sounded poetic. The Virilians around him all did the same. Then came a drink. A small glass was passed to each guest. "It's part of the welcome," someone said. Tomas took a sip. It tasted like honey and stars. Everything felt calm, dreamlike. After the ritual, music began to play, and the guests clapped their hands gently. The ceremony was finished, or so he thought. Tomas found a quiet place near the flower wall, trying to process everything. "Do you understand what you've just done?" asked a voice behind him. He turned and saw a Virilian elder standing nearby. Her eyes were sharp, but kind. I followed the instructions, Tomas said. It was beautiful. She tilted her head. Do you know what the ritual of petals truly is? He frowned. Of blessing ceremony, the elders smiled. For the chosen one, yes, for the rest, simply a blessing. But you, Tomas, you followed the exact steps. You drank, you spoke the words, you cast the petals. That's what everyone did. No, she said, only those chosen by the princess were guided fully. His heart skipped. What do? You mean, chosen? The elder pointed toward the center of the hall. Mira stood there, looking in his direction. Tomas blinked again. His mouth felt dry. You, the elder said softly, are now married to Princess Mira by Varillian right. Tomas stood still, like a statue made of stone. The elder's words echoed in his ears again and again. You are now married to Princess Mira by Varillian right. He wanted to laugh. Maybe this was a joke, a misunderstanding, some strange Varillian custom that didn't really mean what she said. But the elder wasn't smiling. Her eyes were serious. Tomas took a step back and shook his head slowly. Wait, I didn't agree to a marriage. I was just following the ceremony. No one told me anything. You followed every step perfectly, she said gently. The petals, the words, the drink, each one was part of the binding ritual. The princess selected you before the ceremony, me. But I'm not. I'm just a technician. Why would she pick me? The elder nodded slowly. She had her reasons. The choice was hers alone. It is a sacred right. Tomas looked toward the center of the hall. Princess Mira stood there, calm and graceful. Her soft blue robe moved gently in the garden breeze. Her long silver hair shimmered like light on water. She was speaking to some elders, but her eyes kept glancing in his direction. He looked away quickly. Senra, the guide who had helped him earlier, walked over with a quiet smile. Please come with me. The princess would like to speak with you. Tomas wanted to run and hide somewhere on the station, maybe behind a pile of toolboxes. But he took a deep breath and nodded. All right. Senra led him through quiet flower-lined halls, away from the music and the guests. They reached a small chamber filled with soft light and a gentle waterfall, flowing down a glass wall. In the center was Princess Mira, waiting. Tomas hesitated at the doorway. He felt nervous, like a student called to the front of the class. Come in, Mira said kindly. Her voice was soft, but steady. He stepped forward and bowed awkwardly. Your Highness, I think there's been a mistake. There was no mistake, Mira said. I chose you. But why? We've never even spoken. Mira walked closer and sat on a cushion beside the water. She motioned for him to sit as well. I have read about you, she said. Not just reports or data. I've watched the station logs, the crew records. I've seen how you treat others with patience and honesty. You repair things, not just machines, but problems. You speak gently. You listen. That is rare. Tomas was quiet. No one had ever described him like that before. But I'm not a leader, he said. I don't know how to rule or live in a palace. Mira gave a small smile. I did not choose you to rule. I chose you to stand beside me, to help bring peace to my people. You are not here by accident. Tomas, you are here because I saw something in you that my people need. He felt a strange mix of emotions, honor, fear, confusion. But I didn't mean to get married. In our culture, she said, the binding is not forced. You may speak your heart. If you wish to leave, I will not stop you. But if you stay, we begin a journey together. Tomas stared at the floor, thinking. Back on the station, he had always felt small, invisible, useful, but never special. Now, he was being asked to be part of something much bigger, not because of power or fame, but because of who he was inside. He looked up. Mira's eyes were calm, waiting, not pushing, not demanding. I don't know what to say, he whispered. You don't have to say anything now, she replied. Come walk with me. Let me show you the garden. They stepped out into the palace garden. The sky was turning to soft gold as the sun set. Flowers glowed faintly in the dim light. Strange bird-like creatures floated above, singing gentle songs. Mira walked slowly, hands behind her back. This garden has lived for 1,000 years. Every ruler adds a new path or plan. I hope to build something new, too. What kind of something? Tomas asked. Connection, she said. True peace between our kinds. Not just talks and trade but shared purpose. A deeper bond. Tomas looked around. It was peaceful, almost unreal. He couldn't help but smile. This place feels alive. It is. And it's now your home, if you choose it to be. He stopped walking. This still feels too big. Like I stepped into someone else's story. She turned to face him. Maybe this is your story, too, Tomas. Just a different chapter. He didn't answer right away. He didn't know how to. But something inside him softened. Maybe this wasn't a mistake. Maybe it was the beginning of something strange and beautiful. Later that evening, Tomas sat alone in the guest chamber. It was large, but not cold. The walls moved slightly, as if breathing, a tiny floating. Light followed him, gently glowing above his head. He looked at his reflection in the glass wall. Still the same face, still the same plain man. And yet everything had changed. He wasn't sure if he would stay. He wasn't sure if he could become what Mira hoped. But for the first time in a long time, he felt seen. Not because of what he did, but because of who he was. He lay down and whispered to himself, maybe tomorrow will tell me what to do. The next morning, Tomas woke up early. He had not slept well. His mind was full of questions, dreams, and soft music from the Varillian wedding ceremony. The garden outside his chamber was already glowing with light. The sky on Varelia was never the same 2 days in a row. Today, it looked soft orange, with 3 suns rising slowly over the tall trees. Tomas dressed quietly and stepped outside. The air was fresh and cool. Small flying creatures buzzed gently near the flowers, making low humming sounds. The world felt peaceful, but inside his heart, everything still felt unsure. Was he really married to a princess? Could this be true? And if it was, what was he supposed to do now? He found Senra, the soft-spoken guide, waiting near the garden path. Good morning, she said kindly. Did you sleep well? I tried, Tomas replied with a small smile. She tilted her head. The princess wishes to meet with you again. She's in the central hall. The elders will also be present. Tomas felt his stomach twist. Elders? Yes. Senra said, they wish to speak with you. It is tradition after a royal binding. Do not worry. You have not done anything wrong. Tomas followed her down winding paths lined with soft moss and glowing petals. The palace was like a living puzzle, each part connected through plants and natural shapes. There were no sharp corners or heavy doors. Everything flowed like a stream. They entered the central hall, where sunlight poured in through the high branches above. The princess stood near a round table made of glass and vines. Beside her sat 3 Varillian elders, each with long robes and silver symbols on their shoulders. Tomas bowed politely. Good morning. Princess Mira smiled at him. Thank you for coming. One of the elders, a tall male with sky-blue markings on his face, spoke first. We have watched the binding, he said. And now we must ask, do you, Tomas of Earth, accept this bond? Tomas hesitated. His heart beat fast. I still don't fully understand what the bond means. I was just a guest. I didn't know what I was agreeing to. Another elder, a woman with white hair and soft green eyes, nodded gently. That is fair. In Varillian custom, the binding is sacred, but it must be chosen in the heart, not just through words or steps. Mira stepped forward. Her voice was steady. If you wish to leave, Tomas, you are free. There is no shame in walking away. But if you choose to stay, you become part of something much deeper. He looked at her, this calm, wise princess who had picked him out of all people, not because of his job or rank, but because of who he was. But I'm not a leader, Tomas said. I've never lived in a palace. I don't even know your customs. We can teach you, Mira said gently. I don't need you to lead armies or speak in courts. I need someone honest beside me, someone who listens, who understands. The 3rd elder, an older male with golden eyes, nodded. You are her chosen, Tomas. Not just in name but in spirit. Tomas was quiet. The room felt still, like the moment before rain. He thought of his small room on the space station, his toolbox, his simple life. Then he thought of Mira's voice in the garden, her calm words, her belief in peace. Finally, he spoke. "I don't know if I'm ready," he said, "but I'll try. I'll stay." The elders bowed their heads. Princess Mira smiled. "Then we walked this path together." The next few days moved quickly. Tomas was given a new robe made from soft, living fabric. It changed colors gently depending on his mood. A personal guide showed him the ways of the palace, how to greet guests, how to move through sacred places, how to speak with respect during formal meetings. Everything was strange, but beautiful. Mira invited him to private meals each evening. They talked about Earth and Varelia, about how different their people were but also how similar. Tomas told her about growing up in a small city with noisy streets and soft rain. Mira spoke of her childhood in floating gardens and quiet libraries. They laughed often. It wasn't love, at least, not yet, but it was something gentle, something real. One evening, they stood on a high balcony overlooking the crystal lake. The water sparkled under the twin moons. Tomas leaned on the railing. "I still feel like I'm dreaming," he said. Mira smiled. "So do I. Do your people really accept me?" he asked. "Or are they just being polite?" She was silent for a moment. Then she said, "Some support. Some are unsure. And some are not pleased. Because I'm human. Because you're different," she said. "And because they fear change." Tomas looked out at the lake. "I don't want to be a problem." "You are not a problem," Mira said gently. "You're a bridge. And sometimes bridges are built in storms." The next morning, a message arrived from one of the court advisors. A group of nobles had asked for a private meeting with Princess Mira. They wished to discuss the future of the royal bond. Mira told Tomas about it calmly. "They will try to test us. You don't have to come." But Tomas shook his head. "If I'm really part of this, I'll stand with you." She looked at him and nodded. Then we faced them together. The tall chamber was filled with quiet murmurs and soft footsteps. The ceiling above sparkled like a clear night sky. The floor was made of smooth stone that glowed softly beneath each step. In the middle of the hall, a large round table was prepared. For the private meeting, 10 noble Virelians stood around it, dressed in flowing robes, each wearing a sash with their house symbol. Princess Mira stood at one end of the table. Tomas stood beside her, his heart beating fast. He tried to look calm, but his hands were cold. The nobles bowed politely, but Tomas could feel that something was off. The air felt heavy. One of the nobles, an elder named Jareen, stepped forward. He had golden patterns on his sleeves and a voice like slow wind. "Princess Mira," he said with a gentle nod, "we welcome you and your chosen bond. The way he said chosen bond made Tomas feel like a guest again, an outsider. But he said nothing. Mira nodded. "Thank you for accepting this meeting." Another noble, a woman named Rolara, with long blue hair and sharp eyes, spoke next. "This union between you and the human, Tomas, it has surprised many of us. It surprised me too," Tomas said softly, trying to keep his voice kind. A few nobles raised their eyebrows at his reply. Mira placed a hand gently on the table. "Tomas has shown great respect to our ways," she said, "and he has done nothing to deserve doubt." Jareen folded his hands. "It is not his actions we question, Princess. It is the meaning of this bond. A union with a human is unheard of. Many of our people do not understand it. Some are afraid." "Afraid of peace?" Mira asked calmly. "Afraid of losing tradition?" Rolara replied, "Our culture has lasted for centuries. Change is not always safe." Tomas listened quietly. He felt like every word in the room was a stone being placed on his shoulders. He took a small breath and stepped forward. "I understand your worry," he said. "I never meant to break your traditions. I only followed the ceremony because I thought it was part of the celebration. I had no idea it meant marriage." A few nobles whispered to each other. Tomas continued, "But now that I'm here, I want to learn. I don't want to lead or control anything. I just want to help Princess Mira in the way she asked, with honesty. There was silence. Then Mira spoke. This is why I chose him, because he speaks from the heart, not with power, but with care. Relara narrowed her eyes. Even if his words are kind, what happens when outsiders begin to think they can share our throne? Mira's voice remained calm. This is not about rule. It is about unity. If we keep closing doors, we will always remain in the past. I believe our people are ready for something better. The nobles looked at one another. Jureen finally nodded. We will not fight this bond, but we will watch. The people must see what grows from it. Mira bowed, as they should, after the meeting. Tomas and Mira walked back through the garden path. The trees above moved gently, casting dancing shadows on the soft ground. Tomas let out a breath. He had been holding. I thought they were going to ask you to undo the marriage. They cannot undo what is already sealed, Mira said. But yes, they wish to test our strength. They don't trust me, Tomas said. Not yet. She agreed. But some hearts change slowly. You showed them honesty. That's a beginning. Tomas looked up at the sky. What happens now? We continue, Mira said, together. The next day, Mira took Tomas to the learning chamber. It was a peaceful room filled with floating screens and books made of crystal leaves. She had arranged for Tomas to study Varelian history, language, and customs. I want you to understand not just the words we speak, she said, but the stories we tell. Each day, Tomas spent hours with teachers and elders. He learned the names of the old houses, the meaning of sacred colors, the way music shaped Varelian memory. He learned how gestures could mean different things, and how silence could be as strong as speech. He asked questions. He listened, and slowly, the palace staff, the guards, and even some nobles began to see him differently. Weeks passed. One evening, as the two of them walked along the moonlit bridge over the crystal lake, Tomas turned to Mira. I've been thinking. That sounds serious, she said with a soft smile. I want to build something. Not for me, but for us. For humans and Virelians. Mira looked curious. What do you have in mind? A center, Tomas said. A place for learning and sharing. A place where both of our people can come, study each other's ways, and work together. Not just diplomats, everyone. Mira stopped walking and looked at him closely. That is a beautiful idea. It won't be easy, Tomas said. But if we want peace to grow, it needs roots. She nodded. Then let's plant it together. The idea of the Unity Center spread quickly. Mira spoke about it to the Palace Council. Tomas presented it to the station leaders through holocall. The idea was simple but powerful. A place where both sides could meet as equals. Some nobles still frowned, but others were curious. A few even offered support. A small piece of land near the outer gardens was offered as the center's home. Construction began slowly. Tomas worked with both Varelian and human workers. He helped carry stones, set up beams, and plant trees. He didn't give orders. He worked alongside everyone, and the people noticed. At night, Tomas often sat by the window, watching the stars. Mira joined him one evening and asked, "Do you still feel like a guest here?" Tomas smiled. "No, now I feel like a part of something." She looked at him warmly. "You were never just a guest, Tomas. You were always more than that." The Unity Center began as an idea, then became a sketch on glowing paper, and now it stood halfway built under the twin moons of Vireli. It wasn't large or grand like the palace. It had no gold, no tall towers. But it was honest, made of smooth stone, light glass, and flowering vines. The building had open spaces and soft colors. It looked like a place where people could sit together and speak kindly. Tomas stood at the edge of the site, wiping his hands. Dust covered his sleeves, and there was a smudge on his cheek. But he smiled. The workers, both Varelian and human, were laughing as they placed new tiles. Even though they spoke different languages, they had learned to understand each other. Through simple signs, shared work, and smiles, Princess Mira arrived soon after, walking along the path with a calm grace. She looked at the growing center and then at Tomas. "You've done so much," she said. "We've done it together," Tomas replied. She nodded. Still, you gave the idea. And you worked beside everyone, not above them. That means something. He looked around the area. It's not finished yet, but it has begun, she said. Inside the palace, the idea of the Unity Center had started to change hearts. A few nobles who once stayed silent had now come forward with help, offering supplies, books, even teachers for the learning halls. Some still doubted Tomas, but more began to speak his name with quiet respect. Maybe this human sees more than we thought, one elder whispered during a council meeting. Mira noticed the shift. So did Tomas, but not everyone was pleased. One evening, Tomas sat on a bench in the palace garden, drawing new ideas for the center on a tablet. Soft lights floated above him, and the sound of water filled the air. A young Varillian guard named Kalen approached. May I speak with you, Tomas? He asked politely. Of course. Kalen looked unsure for a moment, then sat down beside him. There are whispers among some nobles. They say you are changing the palace too quickly. They fear you might replace old traditions. Tomas frowned. I never wanted to replace anything. Just build something new beside it. Kalen nodded. I believe that, but not all do. Some prefer things to stay the same, even if that means keeping people apart. Tomas asked. Kalen didn't answer. Tomas sighed. Thank you for telling me. Kalen stood and bowed. Just be careful. You bring change, and change can stir deep water. The next day, Tomas and Mira hosted a gathering at the center. They invited people from both sides, humans from the station, Virillians from the city, young students, and curious elders. The large hall was filled with laughter, shared meals, and storytelling. One corner had children drawing pictures together. Another had teachers showing Earth books beside Virillian story crystals. Tomas stood near the doorway, watching it all. It felt like a dream. A human scientist explained space farming to a Virillian herbalist. A Virillian poet shared glowing poems that changed color with mood. A group of builders compared tools and laughed over their differences. Mira joined him, her eyes shining with pride. This is what I hoped for, she said softly. Tomas nodded. So did I. But later that night, something strange happened. Tomas returned to the center to check on a small leak in the water system. As he walked through the quiet halls, he noticed a faint smell, something sharp and bitter. He followed it to the storage area and found a strange mark on the wall. It glowed softly, shaped like a broken circle. He called for help. Guards arrived quickly and scanned the area. It's not harmful, the palace guard said. But the mark, it's a symbol used by those who reject the royal bond. Tomas stared at it. So this is a message? Yes, the guard replied, a quiet warning. Tomas didn't feel afraid, but he did feel heavy. He thought of the guests, the children, the smiling builders. He didn't want anyone to be hurt by what he had become part of. The next morning, Mira met him near the garden. She had already heard the news. I'm sorry, she said softly. It's not your fault, Tomas replied. They want me to end the bond, she said. They think if you leave, things will return to how they were. Tomas was quiet. Then he said, if you need to end it, I understand. Mira looked at him sharply. And if I don't want to? He smiled a little. Then I'll stay, as long as I can do good here. She touched the flower near her wrist. You already have. Later that day, Mira called a small public gathering. She stood beside Tomas at the Unity Center, in front of guests and workers. I know some fear what is new, she said. But fear is not our way. Growth is. She looked at Tomas. This bond was not planned, but it has brought hope, laughter, and healing. Tomas took a deep breath. I'm not a leader, but I care, and I believe that kindness can shape the future. Many guests nodded. Some even clapped. One elder from the noble houses stood up. You have shown humility, Tomas. That is more powerful than any title. That evening, as the moons rose again, Tomas sat with Mira outside the Unity Center. Lights glowed softly in the trees, and the sound of music drifted from a nearby room. Do you ever miss Earth? Mira asked. Sometimes, Tomas said. But I think I've found something more important here. She looked at him gently. And what is that? A reason to stay. The Unity Center was nearly complete. Tomas walked through the halls with a sense of quiet pride. The floors were smooth, the gardens were blooming, and the learning rooms were ready to open. For the first time, humans and Virelians would have a place to learn side by side, not as guests, but as friends. Every part of the center carried a story. Tomas remembered the hands that had shaped each corner: human engineers, Virelian builders, translators, students, and elders. Each person had added a little piece of peace to the place. But not all hearts welcome change. That night, Tomas was invited to speak at the council gathering. The palace was filled with quiet music, soft lights, and thoughtful guests. He stood beside Princess Mira as they both shared news about the center's opening day. When Tomas spoke, he didn't use fancy words. He simply told the story of how it began with a quiet man who came to a wedding and never expected to stay. The nobles listened closely. Many of them had changed over the weeks. Some still watched him with quiet eyes, but most were starting to accept him not as a mistake, but as part of something new. After the meeting, Mira leaned closer and said, "You spoke from the heart again. That's why they listen." Tomas smiled. Maybe they're just curious about the human who got married by accident. She laughed gently. Or maybe they're learning to believe in what we're building. Later that night, the palace rested. Most of the guests had left. The halls were quiet. Tomas stood on his balcony, looking over the glowing city below. The lights of the Unity Center twinkled in the distance. Suddenly, a soft sound reached his ears like wind whispering through leaves. Then, a flicker of orange. Tomas narrowed his eyes. Was that fire? He rushed inside and activated the palace signal. A small screen appeared, showing the outer garden. Flames were rising at the edge of the Unity Center. Guards were already running. Water systems were activating. The fire wasn't large, but it was growing fast. Tomas didn't wait. He rushed down the palace steps and into the night. By the time he reached the center, the flames had reached the supply area. Virelian guards and a few human workers were working together, spraying mist from long tubes. Smoke filled the air, and glowing embers floated like tiny stars. A group of young Virelian students were being led away by a teacher. "Everyone safe?" Tomas asked. Coughing. "Yes," the guard replied. No one was hurt. He looked at the damage. The walls were blackened, and the fresh plants were gone. A section of the roof had melted. Tomas's heart ached, not because of the fire, but because of what it meant. Someone had done this on purpose. Mira arrived shortly after, her robe flowing behind her. She walked through the smoke and stood beside Tomas. "Is anyone injured?" "No," Tomas said. "Just the center." She looked around, her face calm but firm. This was not an accident. Tomas nodded. "They're sending a message." A few moments later, a palace investigator approached with a small glowing stone. "We found this," he said, near the source of the fire. Mira held the stone. It pulsed with a red mark, the same broken circle that Tomas had seen weeks earlier. Tomas looked down. It's the same group, the ones who don't want the bond, the ones who want things to stay the same. Mira closed her hand gently around the stone. "They want us to give up." He looked at her. "Will we?" She met his eyes. "No, never." The next day, the news of the fire spread. The city whispered. Some were worried, some were angry, and some were silent. But something strange happened. People began arriving at the Unity Center, not to blame, but to help. Virelian gardeners brought new flowers. Human engineers brought fresh tools. A group of students came with drawings to hang on the new walls. One young child said to Tomas, "I don't want it to be gone. This place makes me feel happy." Tomas knelt down and smiled. "We're not going to let it be gone. We'll build it again." Mira stood beside him and addressed the group. "They tried to burn a dream," she said. "But dreams cannot be burned, not when we carry them together." That evening, Tomas and Mira sat near the rebuilt garden edge. The stars above were brighter than ever. Tomas turned to her. "Do you ever wonder if this was meant to happen? You choosing me staying, the center." She looked at the sky. "Some things are not planned, but they feel right." He nodded. "I used to think I was just an engineer. Now I feel like part of something that matters. You are. She said simply. He smiled. Back on Earth, I was always the quiet one. People didn't always notice me. But here, Mira said, placing her hand gently on his, you are seen. The next morning, the Unity Center reopened. It wasn't finished. Some walls still smelled of smoke. The roof was patched, but the doors were open, and the halls were filled with light. And this time, more people came than ever before. Some came out of curiosity. Some came to show support. And some came because they believed in what Tomas and Mira had created. The center had survived the whispering fire, not just because of stone and glass, but because of something stronger. Hope. A gentle breeze passed through the rebuilt Unity Center. Flowers danced softly along the windows, and light filtered in from the glass roof above. It had been 2 months since the fire, and now the center was even more beautiful than before. There were more books, more art, more hands that had shaped it. It had become not just a place of learning, but a symbol of what humans and Virilians could build together. Tomas stood near the main hall, watching a group of children draw shapes with light pens on the wall. One Virilian boy handed a human girl a glowing flower. She giggled, and they both laughed as it floated in the air between them. Mira walked beside him. She wore a soft robe made from flower thread and sky silk. Her presence always brought calm. They're learning faster than we ever did, she said with a smile. Tomas nodded. Maybe that's the gift of the next generation. They don't carry the old fears. She turned to him, her eyes calm. They carry what we give them, and you've given them peace, Tomas. He looked away shyly. We both have. That evening, the palace held a gathering, this time not for politics or ceremony, but for celebration. The sky was painted with slow-moving stars, and music played through the trees. Guests from many corners of the world came, humans from the Unity Station, Virilian nobles and teachers, builders, students, even song dancers. It was a celebration not of a single event, but of the journey. A quiet man who arrived as a guest had stayed as a partner, and together with a wise princess, they had changed more than just walls, they had changed hearts. Later, as the music slowed, an elder stepped forward onto the moonlit stage. It was Jareen, the same noble who once doubted Tomas most. He looked at the crowd, then at Tomas and Mira standing side by side. In our history, Jareen said, there are stories of great leaders, great warriors, and great builders. But rarely do we speak of the quiet ones, the ones who build peace instead of walls, the ones who speak less, but listen more. He paused. We once questioned this bond. We feared it. But fear has no roots, and peace does. This bond between a human and a princess has grown like the strongest tree. And today, we no longer see Tomas as a guest. We see him as one of us. The crowd clapped gently. Not loud, not wild, but deeply. Tomas felt warmth in his chest. It was not pride. It was something better, belonging. After the gathering, Mira and Tomas walked alone in the palace garden. I've been thinking, she said quietly. That usually means something important is coming. Tomas replied with a smile. She smiled back. When we were bonded by ceremony, you didn't know what it meant. You were surprised, confused, maybe even scared. I was all three, he said honestly, and still, she continued, you stayed. You walked through doubt, through misunderstanding, through fire. You didn't run. He looked at her. Because you didn't push me. You let me walk at my own pace. She nodded. That is the best kind of bond. She turned to face him. Now I ask, not as a princess, but as Mira, would you choose this bond again? Not by accident, but by heart. Tomas was quiet. He looked at her. The woman who had seen something in him when he felt invisible. Who had believed in kindness more than power. Who had chosen him, not for strength, but for honesty. Yes, he said. I would choose it again. Mira smiled gently. Then let us be bound not just by a ceremony, but by choice. The next day, they held a small, quiet gathering in the garden of the Unity Center. It was not a royal wedding. There were no trumpets or long scrolls, just a simple circle of flowers, a table of soft food, Friends from both Earth and Varelia. Smiles. Warm air. Tomas wore a simple robe. Mira wore a crown of living petals. They stood together, side by side. 1. Elder Relara, who once doubted their bond, now stood before them, her voice soft, this time. She said, "You speak your own vows." Not words from the past, but from the present. Tomas took Mira's hands gently. "I came here by mistake," he said, "but stayed by choice. I was not meant to be a hero or a leader. But I will stand with you in small things, in big things, and everything in between." Mira smiled, her eyes calm. "I chose you once, not knowing if you would stay," she said. "But now I know. You are my peace in a loud world. My stillness when things move too fast. My partner in every dream." They sealed their words with the binding touch of Aurelian gesture of placing both palms together over a small glowing stone. The stone glowed gold. The bond was now true, not by accident, not by tradition, but by heart. In the weeks that followed, the Unity Center welcomed its first full cycle of learning. Young students from Earth came to live with Varelia families. Varelia artists traveled to Earth stations to share their color music. Even food and farming ideas were traded and celebrated. Mira continued her work as a wise leader. Tomas, still quiet, became a voice of balance, a gentle presence, a builder of calm. And though he never asked for fame, people began to write his story. Not a story of power, not a story of war, but a story of one man who thought he was just a guest at a wedding and instead became part of something much greater. The END